recording. Hi, Rohini. Welcome to the Genetic Genius podcast. I'm so excited to have you today.
Hi, Dr. Lulu. I'm so honored to be here today.
Yay, thanks for taking the time. Before we dive deep in and talk about the Akashic Records, which I'm so excited to talk about, let's just learn about you, your journey, how you got here, what you do, what your place on the planet is for our listeners. They can get to know you.
Yeah, of course. Well, I live in San Francisco. I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 19-month-old son. And I have been a serial entrepreneur for the last 10 years. About two, maybe a little longer than 10 years. That's a lie. It's been like, I feel like I was born that way. And then I was able to implement it 10 years ago. But about 2.5 years ago, I had a big trauma happen, which like changed my whole life. Um, my daughter passed away. My 2-month-old daughter, I should say, passed away from SIDS, and
Oh, gosh.
threw our life completely upside down. And this like whole unraveling, or maybe like it was more of a rebuilding,
Mm-hmm.
brought more life into our sphere than I could ever imagine. So it's been really interesting. I remember thinking, how can I live after this? And that trauma has only brought more life, which is really strange to say. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I had this like spiritual opening and rebuilding of myself, which brought me to a world I was completely unaware of prior to, to this happening. So, in a really weird way, I'm grateful to her for enriching the rest of my life in this way. And she's
Oh,
still
wow.
around. So, it's like, it's pretty, it's a strange place to be, to say the least. That's where I'm at now. I went from owning a bartending school, which I already do, to becoming an Akashic Records practitioner, something
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't envision not only existing or ever practicing.
Right. Well, we never know what life is going to bring us, right? And it can be a gift we never realize until later on.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what a powerful story. Thank you for sharing. It's deeply touching. I'm sure that was a challenging time in your life, but it looks like you have, like you said, have rebirthed a whole new aspect of light into your life, which is great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so San Francisco. I love San Francisco. I just had to comment about that. I used to live in Oakland and I love San Francisco. So big hugs to San Francisco.
Aw, thanks. San Francisco is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I miss it, but I love where we live too in Nashville. But yeah, San Francisco has a big place in my heart, and we will always visit. So that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about the Akashic Records. So,
Yeah.
first of all, let's just talk about what they are because I know some listeners are like, "Oh, the what?"
The what records? I thought the
Yeah.
same thing when I came across those words, so I can sympathize. Well, the Akashic records, the best way I can explain it is that they are a vibrational frequency of everything that has, is, and will happen. So our thoughts are vibration, we are vibration, everything is existing on like a vibrational frequency within this planet and beyond. And what these records are essentially just the recorded frequency that has already happened. So let's say I pick up a can of soda and I put it down. I just created a vibrational frequency by picking it up and putting it back down.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's been recorded in the Akashic records now, which is
Yay!
very interesting. And the way we tap into it is through a vibrational frequency. So
Hmm.
we bring our body to that frequency to be able to read the records in a sense. And the Akashic records didn't even have their name until like early 1900s. So they
Mm.
were just they're there were like monks, Buddhists, rishis, like so many different cultures who are already tapping into the Akashic records without any name.
Hmm.
So the way they also did it was through intention, meditation, um, great focus.
Hmm.
Uh, that's where we are now. We're at a point now where our earth I mean, the earth is like us humans, like constantly evolving and growing. So the earth has come to a point, frequency wise, where our bodies are better able to read the vibrations around it. So we don't have to sit in 20 years of meditation to be able to
Thank God.
access the records anymore. And pure intention can get us there very easily. So it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so they're a vibrational place where they have, and you explained that they are um, like an image or like a blueprint, like a of different moments of time of everything that's happened in the past, present,
Mm-hmm.
and future.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And then, so what can the records be used for?
Well, the records can be used for so many things. You can use it to build a business. You
Mm-hmm.
can use it to heal a wound, whether it happened in this life or a previous lifetime.
Mm.
You can use it to gain insight on a relationship. You can use it to figure out the adventures of this can that I'm holding still. You can open the Akashic records of anything. And one thing I want to make very clear is that there are a lot of misconceptions out there, and
Mm.
rightfully so, because it's something we can't see.
Right.
But the Akashic records aren't away somewhere else. They're all around us. So we are essentially the Akashic
Mm.
records. We're in the Akashic records. The
Mm.
Akashic records live between ourselves, within us,
Mm.
and every being and object even on this planet and beyond. So all we're doing when we're reading the Akashic records of something is we're tuning into its natural frequency.
Mm, oh, that's great. I love that explanation because, I think a lot of people think that when you're accessing them, you're like going way off into some like planetary realm, and millions of light years away.
Absolutely. No, that's what confused me in the beginning. I'm
Yeah,
sorry to
you're like,
interrupt,
where
but
am I? No, you're fine.
yeah, somebody who, I got obsessed with the record, so I started reading as many books as possible and like listening to as many podcasts as possible, watching as many YouTube videos as possible, which is kind of not too smart to do because you get so many different opinions on
Right.
an
Yeah.
object.
Yeah.
So I was so confused. People were claiming to talk to aliens through the records and all these different things. And I'm just like, what are these records? It turns out it's none of that. It's everything, but it's very simple. It's more simple than we make it. It's
Mhm.
really just the vibrational frequency next to me, or like
Yeah.
2 feet away.
Yeah,
It's
so
pretty
it's
cool.
yeah, totally. So it's like a little, just the energy around us is how
Mhm.
we're just accessing that, which is so
Yes.
great and so simple. I think that's what it's wonderful how you break that down. Okay, so it sounds like the records can be used for anything that we desire or want to be using them for. And so a record is like it's such an interesting word. So the record is like a timeline. Is that how you think about it? Is what's the record part of the word?
So,
Or
for example, the record is just the idea that there are so many different aspects to it. It's like the idea came about when this woman named Helena went and sat with Buddhist monks in like 1909, I believe. And they were calling it just Akasha at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So she sat with them and learned how to access the records, or
Yeah.
the Akasha, which
Yeah.
really translates to ethers or the sky above or what's above us.
Mm-hmm.
And she coined the term Akashic records in a report she wrote about that experience.
Oh,
And
okay.
her reference, I believe, was to compare it to some form of library, because it's a collection of waves and frequencies that we're accessing,
Mm-hmm.
rather than like a bureaucratic record.
Right. Yeah. Yes, that makes sense. So energetic forms of information.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, great.
That's
Love
great.
it. Okay, so how did you become? You talked a little bit. How did you become the Akashic Records practitioner that you are now? Can you explain that a little bit more? In the beginning, you talked a little bit about your journey, but like how are you? What's a good question? So how did you start doing it? How
Yeah,
how was the
it's a great
process?
question.
Yeah.
So this is about to get really weird, and I
Oh,
like
that's great.
saying
I love weird. Let's bring it.
I like saying like as grounded as I can with this topic, just because it can go outer space, you know?
Yeah.
And we're in human form. We are grounded. Like, we're living on this planet.
Yeah.
So after my daughter passed away, a woman whom my husband and I didn't know started having dreams about our family. And well, so she was his sister's husband's coworker, kind of far removed, but close enough.
She knew who you were.
Yeah, she knew who I was. But so we went to India to spread her ashes, and while we were there, this woman started having dreams about us, not knowing our exact location. It turned out that she was having dreams about us in that exact location with missions for us to complete while we were there. So we started receiving these dreams and following along. Throughout this journey, we ended up finding out about these spirit guides or whatnot. Who knows, like, what was really happening? But it shook up our world, and it brought belief into our system. So when we came back, after pretty much experiencing miracles over and over again, I sat down in meditation pretty often. And one night, and I would go and meditate like around 4 a.m. when we were in Rishikesh, northern India, where her ceremony was. An astrologer told me if I meditate at 4 a.m., then I can communicate with her. So I started doing that.
You're like, okay.
Yeah. So one day in meditation, I asked for ultimate healing. I was in a lot of pain, obviously.
Yeah.
And after that, I started seeing the words Akashic records everywhere. And at first, like, it brought a lot of familiarity to me. Like, I knew these words, even though I've never seen them, or I didn't even understand what they were at the time. And they seemed like really big. So I started ignoring it, of course, you know.
Right. That's what we always do first. Ignore it, and then it'll address it later.
It'll get bigger and bigger and bigger, and finally we have to address it. Yeah. But I started seeing it everywhere. So after about a month or so, I got really curious and, to be honest, quite obsessed. So I started reading every book I could. I started taking as many courses as I could, and eventually learned how to open my own records. It took about 2 months to be able to learn how. Just I'm not a channeler. I'm not in the spiritual world. I wasn't in that realm. So it took a lot of convincing for me.
More science based. You're like, okay, I want the real deal here.
Yeah, I think for me, like, a lot of the information I was receiving was like out of this world information, where when I started applying a scientific aspect to it, it started making more sense. And it wasn't so made up sounding. I don't know what's a better word for it.
No, that's good. Yeah, our brain sometimes likes to have that info, right, about some kind of affirmation to keep us grounded, like you were saying before.
Absolutely. It's a marriage of both, right? The spiritual and the scientific together is perfection. Yeah. So eventually I started practicing on my friends so that I can become better at reading the Akashic records. And as I became better, I started charging people. And as I started charging people, I got busier. And all of a sudden, I find myself with a new career of becoming like, I wasn't trying to do that, but it happened.
It happened. It was meant to be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I started, eventually I started teaching about the records. And that's where I'm at now. I'm just finishing. Tomorrow's actually my last day of my first batch of the Akashic Records practitioner course. So I'm so excited. It's been amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. What a wonderful story. You know, it's when we can trust something that we have no, belief in, I guess, you know, it's like a little bit, we can believe it, but we're not sure if we can trust the belief. I guess that's when I think the real healing of every aspect comes through. We're like, okay, what is that? Okay, I'm just going to do it.
Absolutely. And I feel like we need that discernment, you know, to question, just so we can really investigate and get the correct answers. If we just believed everything right off the bat, could you just imagine what type of world we would live in?
Right.
With all the misinformation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We need to have a little bit of investigation.
Absolutely.
um, okay, great. So then you started working as a practitioner, which you're doing now, which sounds so awesome. And
That's
then
fun.
let's talk about how you access the Akashic records, how you personally do, and then we can talk about some other ways that other people can do it. But I'd love to hear kind of like what that process is for you.
Absolutely. So in the beginning, I was using a prayer
Mm-hmm.
by Dr. Linda Howe, which was awesome. So the prayers are generally just like a vibrational key, which brings your frequency and state to that of the record, so that you can communicate, interact with it easier. You can do this again by meditation and intention as well. But I was using this prayer by Dr. Linda Howe, and it was working fine for me. I love Dr. Linda Howe, and she's my teacher, so it was a pleasure to use it. But some of the verbiage wasn't in vibration with me, and it was
Mm-hmm.
creating blocks within me. And I don't like the word block, but that's what it was doing. It was like causing like a hesitation,
Mm.
and therefore I didn't have a clear channel between me and the records.
Mm-hmm.
So I started seeking my own tap in, which is what I call it,
Yeah.
from that point on. And about 8 months later, I believe I received it. Like it just came through me after I opened up the
Nice.
records. So I've been using that now. And
Great.
it's been awesome. So that's how I do it. I read the words out loud, and follow the instructions that I was given
Mm-hmm.
from the records, and it takes me right there. It's
That's
pretty
great.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes we each need our own individuality, I think, especially like you're saying, if we're tapping into something that is ours, our energy field, then if we can connect more with it, then we're more in line with it, as you said. Not like a block, like you were saying, but it's a good way, another word. It's just like, it's not like we're not 100% allowing it or receiving
Yeah.
it.
It doesn't sound like it's from us sometimes. So you have to find that alignment within to be able to let it happen easier.
Yeah, completely. Okay, so you're accessing the records, and I'd love for you to talk about, like you mentioned a little earlier, but like what are some like myth busters about the records where people think like this is what's happening, this is what's not happening, just so people can be a little bit more clear. Like you're saying, the information
Absolutely.
is varied out there.
Absolutely. So I would say one of the biggest myths, let's talk about three.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, let's narrow it down.
One, because there's so many.
Yeah.
So one big one that I keep seeing, I mentioned it, is that you are talking to aliens through the records.
Yeah.
And this is absolutely not true. Like, you're not talking to any other entity.
Mm-hmm.
You are just reading vibrational frequencies. You're reading charts, really.
Yeah.
But you're doing it with your energetic body.
Right.
Another one that I love is that the Akashic records live in the highest point in the universe.
Where would that
And
be? Like,
I don't know, because the universe is infinite. So
yeah, like a Star Wars light field away or something.
yeah, I mean, I love people's imaginations. That's
Right.
great.
That's good. Some people can
But
travel far.
you can travel far. You can travel far,
Right.
but
Yeah.
but they live everywhere. They're just a
Yes.
part of us. It's
Very
not one
accessible.
specific, yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a specific point, or you don't have to leave your body. Like, you don't have to
Mhm.
go anywhere else.
Right.
You're The truth is that we are always accessing the Akashic records. Like
Mhm.
right now, we're waving in and out of it. It's supposed to be. It lives in a frequency about, like, let's see, 5 frequencies about where we live,
Mhm.
and our body, like energetic body, just goes like this all the time anyway. It's always going in and out of the records. And
Yeah.
a lot of times, like when we receive these amazing insights or like great ideas, it's us tapping into our records and
Right.
our past life experiences, our experience now, our future possible experiences,
Mhm.
and so on.
So when we get an
Okay.
aha moment, it's like we're like right in the moment of
Yeah,
being
it's just
touching in. We're like,
it's
zoo.
an unintentional alignment within the records, and it goes
Mm.
in and out like this
Mhm.
constantly. So we're constantly receiving information and ideas.
Love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 3.
Number 3. Okay, the third one, and I had it and I totally forgot. Okay, let's see. The third one would be that, hmm, it totally jumped my
It's okay. We can
brain.
have two. Two is fine. Yeah.
Two for
Yeah.
now.
But
What's
it's,
another one though? That it's a library, that there are different rooms in it, that there are like there are barriers between us and the records, and we have to enter a certain way or whatnot. And this is what a lot of the prayers are creating. It's
mm-hmm.
this form of control around it, where it's like
Mm,
you have to be this way, you have to be that way, and it always aligns with some type of religion format,
right.
where you have to like become this supernatural human to be able to access the Akashic records.
Only the special people.
Yeah, like a
Right.
wall built around, and that's
Yeah.
not the case at all. Every single human, every single person that's alive right now has access to it whenever they want. And that's one
Mm-hmm.
thing that everyone should know. It's not a scary thing. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to be a psychic. All
Mm-hmm.
you're doing is tuning into energy, and ultimately we are all energy. We know that. But it's the energy that our soul, our DNA, and our patterns in this lifetime is carrying with us. So we just tap into those parts of ourself to
Mm.
seek insight, which
Yeah.
is really cool.
That's super cool. Yeah, I love it. That was a great number three.
Thank you. I know, I'm like, I swear I had
No,
it.
that's perfect. That's great. um, okay, so those are some wonderful myth busters, which I think are really important because it's nice to kind of define it. I liked how you talked about, it's not so untouchable or so special that people can't access it. Just a normal person. Not that we're not normal. You know what I mean? And any
We're
individual.
all supernatural.
Right. So anyone that's supernatural, because we're all supernatural, can
Yeah,
access it. Okay, great.
absolutely.
um,
That,
go ahead.
oh, it just this reminds me of something. One of my students recently asked me how to react when someone says, "Wow, you have such a great gift." It just
Mm,
the word supernatural brought me there, and I'm like, "Well, you say thank you because you do have a really great gift, but it's a gift we all have. This
right.
access is a gift that we all have, like, and it is a gift
Yeah.
because to be able to tap into something like that, most animals, plants can't do that. Like we were given a gift
Right.
of
Totally.
insight.
It's a great gift. I love that. The Akashic gift. And maybe we can change the name.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. You talked a little bit about having some words, poem, prayer, whatever, some intention in the beginning. Are there specific rituals, like interventions that you like to set up the space for, like, special crystals or essential oils or, things that can help shift a vibration that make it easier to access, anything like that? Tools for
Sure,
the soul?
absolutely. And just like the same way we're interacting with the records, we can interact with the different vibrations and frequencies that crystals contain, flowers contain. Someone's at the door. But so one of my favorite crystals I like using is the Herkimer diamond. And the
Ooh.
Herkimer diamond vibrates at such a high frequency that it quickly elevates our frequency to match that of the records.
Mm-hmm.
I if you do use a Herkimer diamond, I recommend not using it often and only using it when you're accessing the records, just because the vibrational frequency on it is so high that it's
Mm,
exhausting for our energetic body to constantly be around. Can
right.
create like mental fog and exhaustion, really.
Yeah, too much information coming in all the time. You could have an off
Mm-hmm.
switch.
That's the thing though, like we don't need to use anything else. Like the
Right.
only thing we need is our body and our intention. These other elements are just for fun,
Right.
I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
like to create a fun environment. So I'm always using different crystals or aromas, something like that to just help me. It's, I guess for me, it's
quick.
about, quick access. But if I have the same kind of thing that I do, then it sets the space or sets the tone or something like that.
Yeah.
Like,
The
um,
ritual.
yeah, the ritual. Yeah. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do now. I got this set up and this set up.
Hmm.
And so, okay, so you don't necessarily have to use those things, which I think was a good point about what you said. It's nice to have those. They can be a tool if you like to use them, but you don't have to. You have the tool within.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay. And I think you already answered this, but can anyone access and use the Akashic records? Is there a specific, I don't know, age range or anything like that?
Well, we all have access at all times, but it's recommended not to start intentionally accessing the records until you're 18 years of age.
Mm.
And the main reason for this is just because we have infinite potential
Mm-hmm.
as children and as growing young adults. Where if we access the records and receive information on a possible future outcome, it can kind of kill bridges going in other directions.
Right.
We just
Yeah.
want to keep that infinite potential open and then
Right.
start seeking insights when we decide down a
Yeah.
path.
Yeah, that makes sense. Right. Yeah, you want to have all the doors open on the path or all the paths open in that specific age of growth.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
one thing that I really want to make clear is that the information we receive about future possible outcomes is not always definite. We always have free will and we can always change something.
Right.
So when we're children, sometimes that's a hard thing to grasp. Like, okay, well, they said this was going to happen, so
Right. Why is it
that's
happening
it.
right now? Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so
having that
mhm.
understanding is really important, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And so I liked what you just said too. So when you're having information coming from or tapping into, like you said, the Akashic records, that outcome that you might be given at that moment in time is lining up with where you are in that moment in time. And
Absolutely.
so it can shift depending on where you are, right? On your path.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's one of the best points to bring up is that we have free will and
Mm,
we can change that outcome if we don't like it. If or we can even make it better or we can do whatever we want with it depending on how we decide to react.
mhm.
So exactly what you said. It's all depending on the exact point in life we are at. These are the responses we receive from the Akashic records are not, well, if you did this, this, and this, then this would happen. It's this is you right now, and right now this is the potential of outcomes that are sitting in front of you. So you can choose.
Right. Yeah, it's like the ultimate buffet.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's
It
like, okay,
is.
I'm gonna have a little of this and a little bit of that.
But it's the buffet in a specific place. It's not the buffet
Right.
from all around the world, you know?
Yeah, unless that's what you want, right?
If you are everywhere, then yeah, sure.
Right, yeah. But yeah, you're specific in that moment in time. I love that.
Hmm.
Okay, so it sounds like that's a really important key piece of the access is that when you're accessing your records, you're seeing information that is valid but can shift depending on where you're wanting to go or wanting to shift, or you're like, oh yeah, I love the way this would look, let me move things in that direction because that sounds really great, or how can I ask for more help and support in moving in that way, or that outcome looks a little bit unliking. I'm not, I don't want to move in that direction. I think I'll shift and move into a different direction. Is that like what you were saying?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Perfectly explained.
Well, thanks. Okay. And so you've now really, it's clear, I think, about how you access it. And then how do you teach others to access it? Which I love that part about what you do, because I think, you can see your passion for like letting everyone know that they can access their records, and it's not some, spiritual guru on top of a mountaintop yodeling to the goats, and meditating and
Absolutely.
chanting. So how do you teach people to access?
Well, it took me a long time to be able to access my own record. So I got to learn a lot of troubleshooting techniques.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I believe that happened for a reason. In the beginning, I was conducting a lot of readings so that I can gain experience, but not knowing in the time.
Of the
And
Akashic Records readings.
yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
then after a period of conducting so many readings, the Akashic Records told me now it's time to teach. Now
Mm,
you have to move on to teaching it because your reach is much farther and more people will have access and it's a healing tool. So
right.
want it in everybody's hands. You want it to
Yeah.
be accessible. So the way I like to introduce the records is to take away all of the stigma,
The
pull the
Mythbusters.
curtains, pull it all down,
Hmm.
because a lot of people use these esoteric or just the unseen as a tool to
Mm,
control others, and I've
right.
seen it so often
Yeah.
that I'm tired of it. Like,
Right.
I don't
We don't
want
need
to.
to live in that paradigm anymore. We're
No,
way
we
beyond
don't need the
it.
gurus.
No,
Okay, we can
yeah.
be our own
We have our
guru.
own, yeah, within. Exactly.
Yeah, so that's my main thing. I want to
Hmm.
tear down all that stigma so that
Hmm.
people don't feel like they have to go find a guru.
Hmm.
A,
Yeah.
and then I want to enlist confidence and belief in the
Mm.
student.
Hmm.
So we build up their trust within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We let them know that they have all the power in the world.
Hmm.
And we let them know that it's okay to make mistakes and that it's not going to happen overnight. It's a
Right.
practice. And I feel like that's what, like, I have been so successful in teaching it, and having so many people be able to open the records a lot quicker than I was,
Mm-hmm.
for those reasons. Is because the belief is the gateway, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
to the Akashic records. Once you have that belief and your heart open, it's a
Mm.
lot easier to access it. And that's my
Yeah.
main focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I love that. It's so nice it's the simplicity. I like that you have, not dialed it down, but but it's great, to be able to have a simplistic way to learn something when
Mhm.
you're not feeling like, oh, I'll never be able to do that because only the most enlightened person can do it. And I think that's the stigma you're talking about. It's like, no, we can
Yeah.
all access it just with the tools, the
We're all
learning.
enlightened. That's the
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
There's no like tiers of people. Like, we're all on our own separate journey. So like, comparing one to another person just seems pretty ridiculous to
Right.
me.
Pointless, pretty pointless, right?
It is
Yeah.
pointless.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so that is a way that people can start to work with you to
Mhm.
learn how to access their own records. And then what about accessing other people's records? So you talked about that and part of what you do for the Akashic Records reading, but I don't think we talked about it really. How do you access another person's records? Is there a difference than how you do it for yourself?
Yeah, so the only thing is the intention, where
Mm-hmm.
the focus is when we're accessing.
Mm-hmm.
So one way to do that again is through like a prayer or a tap in, which I like to call it a tap in. But so I've converted the personal tap in to one for others as well,
Mm-hmm.
to make it easier if you're reading somebody else's record. So you just change your name to their name or
Oh,
whatnot,
right. Yeah.
and it's just as easy as that. I do have to mention, if anyone's thinking about opening somebody else's record, you have to have permission. This is a very
Mm.
personal space to go into.
Right. Yeah.
So they have to be alive and you have to have permission. Those are
Yeah.
like very
Okay. The
important
two
rules.
key things. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really important. You don't want someone getting into your energetic field and records without permission. That would not be good.
No,
No.
I mean, it's such an interesting thing, because what we're essentially doing as practitioners when we're reading somebody else's records is we're stepping out of our own energetic body and stepping into their energetic field. So you're not only stopping your records from recording, you
Mm.
are jumping into somebody's like very private pool. Let's say.
Yeah.
So they
Bathing in
have
their
to know
chi.
you're there, and
Yeah.
they have to be ready for you, and you have to be ready for it and what's about
Right.
to come up.
Yeah. And so you need to be prepared for that, it sounds like. And is that part of what you do with the actual teaching aspect is teaching, that preparation for students?
Absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
we go through protecting ourselves. We also practice on each other a lot. So
Mhm.
I've had my students pick at least two other students from their class and practice every single week.
Nice.
Because that comfort level is so important. It's really it's a tough barrier to just like
Right.
cross.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, moving into someone else's energetic space can not always be an easy thing. It's like reminds me of
No.
like the like Ghostbusters or something where the ghost, you know, like like goes through you.
It is like
Yeah.
that. It can be really exhausting too, just to go in somebody else's field.
And
A
so do you
lot of
have to
time,
do, oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh no, sorry. A lot of times after a reading, I have to like sit in a bathtub for like 2 hours
Mm,
and not talk to anybody just because
yeah.
it's different frequency than your own. So it's like, it's a shift.
Right. That's what I was going to ask you. Is there specific recommendations for like the recharge? Because it does take an energetic work.
Absolutely. I recommend salt baths. That's my
Mm-hmm.
favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And I also recommend just drinking water, putting your
Water.
feet in dirt,
Yeah.
taking a bite of something. Grounding is really important.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, those are the key, like regular things that we don't always remember.
Yeah.
Okay, great, good. And so we talked a little bit about the timing, but I wanted to just mention, so you talked about like the past, present, and future of the timeline of the
Mhm.
Akashic records. And does that mean that they like span all dimensions of time? If that makes
Absolutely.
sense. If I'm stepping in at one moment, does that mean that I have access to all moments of time within my records?
Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. Time doesn't exist in the Akashic records, and oftentimes you find that if you ask about specific times, you don't get a clear answer, just
Mm,
because time doesn't look linear within the records. It kind of looks stacked on top of each other. I
mm,
don't know how to explain it better than
mhm,
that.
mhm.
But yeah, one way to do it is so the way I teach to be able to zoom in on specific timelines is to a create that intention about time, but also we're made out of three aspects in this lifetime, and
Mhm,
it's the mind, body, and soul. And
mhm,
what that really comes down to is our mind is the programming within this life, so we
mhm.
can zoom in on this life inquisitions.
Right.
You know,
Uh-huh.
our body is our DNA that's been passed down to us.
Mhm.
And then our soul is the energetic field that has traveled through time and space and dimensions.
Right.
So it's really three aspects that make us who we are. And that's why we're so unique. There hasn't been any other
Right. Life forms.
combination,
Yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
So when we go into the records, I like to create intention towards one of those aspects so that
Mm.
I can either heal myself in this lifetime,
Right.
heal the energy that's gone through so many different DNA formats and
Mhm.
programmings, and
Mhm.
also heal the DNA that I was gifted from my
Mhm.
ancestors.
Yeah.
So a lot of different ways of doing
Oh,
it.
great. That's a super great segue into talking about the DNA, which I'm
Yeah.
so excited to talk about. So, okay, we talked about accessing a little bit about accessing past life information that you mentioned earlier. So, and I think you just kind of also touched with that as well. So we can access, I think for me and probably for our listeners, the past life is always like a strange kind of place to be. You're like, well, really? I was all these other people? How did I get to be
Yeah.
here? That all exists, And so when we're in the Akashic records and accessing our own past life, how does that look like? Do you see, different images? Do you see, or on the timeline, like you said, like stacked up? Or is it when you ask a question, then you get an answer of a specific past life that gives you an answer?
I love it. This is a great question. And I'm going to give you a very generic answer in a way that
That's great.
only because we all receive information different. So
Mm,
you might not see something, you might hear something, you might get a feeling.
mm,
It's really tough to put a finger on what is going to happen when you open your records. The way I personally receive the information
mhm,
is an unraveling of a movie. So I'll
mm,
receive an image, and this image will turn into something else, and I follow it and I name it, and it brings me closer to the answer. Some people will write and they'll receive information in
mhm.
writing. It just depends.
Right.
And usually the insights that we do receive, because we have lived so many lives and we
Right.
have gone through so much and so many different experiences that we're not going to receive all of it. Like our
That would
puny
be
little
overload.
minds, yeah, we would explode. We wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to receive that
Not a good
information.
plan. Right. Yeah.
No. So we do only receive answers that pertain to our specific situation in this moment in time.
That's good. That's really key. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if like something that I did in a past life that's still affecting me right now and it's causing problems in my immediate life, that would come forward and I
Right.
would realize it's the unraveling, untangling in a
Yeah.
sense, just knowing something happened or knowing a reaction I had or knowing why I did something or why I'm doing something now unravels it and it releases the tension and allows for healing, and allows us to process and go through what we didn't previously go through emotionally so that we
Yeah.
can move on.
Right. So we can have the information to benefit us in this lifetime to either shift or change how the outcome in this lifetime that didn't maybe happen in a previous lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. That wasn't that generic.
Okay. So I was like, I don't know. Everyone's different.
No,
I
that's good. Yeah, because we do have a way, I'm super visual. So I see like books and information and writing, like, and other people, like you said, like are more verbal. They're going to hear things or get information in a different way, just like a kinesthetic aspect. We all have a different way that we learn and process more efficiently, or something that really helps us to open up, like you said, with the heart center, really like opening up into that information. So that's great. I love that.
Yay. Yeah, and it's also the parts of ourselves that we have been flexing for our life too. So let's say if you're a visual person, you probably visualize often. So you're going to be better at receiving messages that way.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to learn a whole new way to receive information.
Yeah. That's the energetic language you speak.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Yeah. Some of us speak more than others.
Yeah.
More different layers. Okay. So DNA, you talked about the physical, energetic, and mental bodies. So can we access the Akashic records for healing on that physical layer? So we're working on the physical body and then accessing, like, let's say there was an ailment. I don't know, would be a good example. I don't know, let's say IBS, just like jumping general. And so we're accessing the records for healing, maybe on one level to help us work through that. And we know that the layers of the body are all connected. So it's not just one thing, but then can we then access the actual records for a deeper look at the DNA? And can you talk about that?
Absolutely. Yes. This is the best. You can do all of that. You can, so what I have used it for is heart disease, diabetes, and high cholesterol runs in my family. And I hate saying that because it's an action-based thing.
Right.
But so I went deeper on all those aspects just because with my while being pregnant with my son, I had gestational diabetes, and it blew my mind just because I'm so careful, all those things. But
you're like, how did this happen?
How did this happen? But you can get it. You don't. It's not.
Yes.
But so I started zooming in on that through the records, and this really went back to a time before I even know, with probably a great grandparent of mine. I didn't know who this person was that I was being shown in the records, but it zoomed in on them not being able to, like, not having enough money, so they're eating whatever they can, and a lot of rice was in their diet. Like, I was shown all of this, like, where there's a lot of rice shown in their diet, and that feeling within they had was the feeling of lack, which got recorded in a frequency format within the DNA.
Right.
And it got passed down, and it's like this lack where you feel like you have to like fuel up all the way, but that action came from that very simple emotion of not having enough, and that like simple emotion of not having enough getting passed down and passed down and passed down, and all of a sudden it runs in the family, but we don't know why.
Right.
And it's affecting everybody in the family.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's that simple unraveling
Mm-hmm.
that absolutely can heal the DNA.
Yeah.
And this is just like a simple example I gave. We
Mm-hmm.
can go deeper. It can be bigger things than that.
Right.
But diet, why not?
Right.
It's an easy one
Yeah.
to
Yeah. That's an easy one. I think it's easy for people to understand. Yeah.
yeah.
That's great. I love that, and I think it's really important for people to understand that there are so many different levels of healing that we can access, like you're talking
Mhm.
about. And a lot of that can come from within, and learning how to access within the healing within is that shift of, that we're taking on healing as a planet, right? It's like, so we're teaching each other, which is what I love about what you do, teaching each other how to open up and learn how to heal from within allows us to access things in a whole different way than just being like black and white. Like, you have this, everybody in your family is going to have it. That's totally not true.
No.
And so it's important for people to understand that, but it can be, you explained it really great in a great way, because it can be confusing for people. There's so many different aspects of the DNA that we're learning about.
Yeah.
And so when you're in the Akashic records accessing your DNA, is there DNA that is not activated that we're waiting to turn on, or can you turn on specific DNA that shifts you into a new level of healing, spiritual awakening, a new level of being, so to speak?
I love this question. Absolutely. Absolutely. A part of one of the best parts of the Akashic records, in my personal opinion, is that we have the power to learn about ourselves and all aspects of ourselves, whether they're dormant or not.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, acknowledging something simple like that could activate
Mm-hmm.
our infinite potential, or it
Mm-hmm.
could deactivate something that we were unaware of.
Right.
Because really, the way I see it now is
Mm-hmm.
that we are just holding different frequencies, all different
Mm-hmm.
levels from all
Mm-hmm.
different aspects of life. And
Mm-hmm.
so it can be as easy as just like unplugging something or plugging something or another thing in its place,
Mm-hmm.
or crossing wires if it needs to
Right.
happen.
Yeah.
But it's just about controlling the frequencies in a way. Do we
Mm-hmm.
want, why does my shoulder hurt? Like, why am I holding this frequency right here,
Right.
this vibrational frequency here? Has it been here since before this lifetime? Or
Right.
did I place it here? And how can I unravel it? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
have the power to do that through the Akashic records for sure.
Yeah. Oh, great. I love that. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
just am so fascinated with the ways that we can access our records and help with healing ourselves, but like you're saying, help with others and learning how to, if people want to and they're ready to access other people's records with their permission.
Yeah.
Right. All those
Important
things.
part.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like the way to access this DNA, to activate it or to switch wires or whatever, is to just go into the records. There's not like a specific thing you have to ask when you go in, like, okay, I'm ready. Access
No.
my DNA now.
No, it's really about intention. So when you go into the records, you intentionally ask about what you're seeking. And
Yeah.
if it's parts of your DNA, parts of your personality that you're wondering where they came from, then you can be specific about that. And
Mm-hmm.
most often you will receive information. It's the wording that really matters too. So
Mm.
oftentimes, like, the whys or hows or whats get answered a lot more clearly than the
Mm-hmm.
yes or no questions.
Right.
Because there's like an unwraveling to it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Life isn't
Yeah.
about a yes and no, really, is it?
Yeah. And most often we know the answers to yes or no. You just
Right.
check in with your gut. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a no.
Right. Yeah.
That's a yes.
Trust your gut. Totally.
Yeah.
So do you think that there was a connection with your spiritual awakening, which we touched in the beginning, with your activation of your DNA, which you
Yes.
might not have? She's like, yes.
I'm not even going to let you finish. Sorry.
No, it's totally fine. You're like, yep, that was
yes,
it.
I know where you're going with this.
That's great. Awesome. Well, good.
Yeah. So my both my parents, they both come from like a long line of mystics who
Mm,
practiced these arts like centuries ago. So
yeah.
I feel like this part of my DNA definitely got activated.
Hmm.
And what's really funny is that um I had I have a bartending school, and I was very into herbal mixology and all of these herbal medicinals in a sense, and
Yeah.
not knowing that this was a really big part of my DNA as well. So I feel like
Mhm.
we can switch the on and off switch whenever we want and just access that portal in a
Right.
way.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I think that is so true. I myself have had so many and probably still will have many more other different careers and aspects and highlights,
mhm.
and I get inspired by different things. So I think it is, it's like you're on that one of those switchboards was it from the
Yeah.
40s? You're like, I'm gonna tap into this one now, and then tap into that one.
Turn that one off. Turn that
Right.
one
Yeah,
off.
I don't want to
Just
talk to that
kidding.
person anymore. Yeah, that's great. So when you're into that DNA and activation place, that's when all of the shifts can happen, it sounds
Mhm.
like. Mhm.
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely.
Love it. Okay,
Yay.
so how can people learn about what you have going on? You have some great things. You have your online community. So if you can talk a little bit about that. And then
Absolutely.
also your spiritual business accelerator. So both of those things sound awesome. And can you talk to our listeners about those?
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yeah.
The online community has been one of the most proud things that I've like birthed into this world, honestly.
Mm,
It's just a magical space where humans who are learning how to tap into their infinite potential are getting together. We're exchanging ideas, information. Right now, we're working a lot on the Akashic records, but
hmm.
it's a free community. It's just
Yeah.
like we have meditations up there, we have free workshops up there. Sometimes when we bring a guest, the workshops aren't free because we like paying people, but
That's always
the
nice.
membership's
Yeah.
free and it's
Yeah.
awesome.
That's great.
And yeah, and anyone can join. You just have to go to magicincline.com and click join free community. Um,
Ta-da. One button, easy.
easy. And yeah, in the beginning of the year, 2021, I'll be offering a new spiritual business accelerator.
Hmm.
My the last 10 years, the last decade of my life has been dedicated to building businesses over and over again.
Yeah.
And I want to apply it to a soul centered version where
Hmm.
it's more about reach with our heart rather than growth in our pocket. And the growth comes with that, but i
Right.
want i want that ripple effect of love to travel far and to give mystics and spiritual folk who oftentimes don't have the confidence to start something new, the tools so that they can build something all on their own and free themselves from the corporate chains of America.
Dun dun
Sorry,
dun. No, it's
I know.
fine.
It turns
No,
into like a
right.
superhero movie.
Yeah, right. Totally. No, it's good. It's great to empower people. I love that. So, people can find all that information on your website and then also
Yeah,
follow you. So that's magicincline.com. And then
perfect.
also your at Magic Incline on Instagram. And that's a great way to
Yeah,
keep in touch with what you have going on.
thanks. Yay.
Awesome. Wonderful. Okay. One last fun question.
Yeah.
If you had an unlimited budget and you could do anything you wanted in the world to make the biggest planetary impact, what would you do?
Whew, I would get rid of plastic
Yay! I'm
and
on a no
create
plastic kick.
and create an alternative. I
Mhm.
would also um, create sanctuaries for animals so that they don't have to be
Mm,
farmed anymore,
mhm,
and natural like places, not like another farm version, but
mhm.
and also create some type of um I don't know, like new food thing that people can get really excited about. I don't know how to come up with this with the words right now, but
Ah,
just
that's great.
to free
Some
all the
new food.
souls from harm is like what
Mm,
I would personally do if I
mhm.
had all the budget in the world.
Nice. Great. I love those. Yeah, you got it. Ding. There you go.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rohini. It's just such a pleasure to have you as a guest today. And I learned so much, and I'm sure our listeners have as well.
Aw, thank you so much, Dr. Lulu. I had so much fun. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome.